You've both got 3 children. Sarah, what would you make if, you know, somebody came along and tried to tell your little ones off?
Oh, yeah, I'd go bananas if anyone tried to tell my children off, because I'd always presume that they'd be right. But they're still quite little and they're quite well behaved. I mean, when I was...
On the off chance they weren't?
Yeah, I mean, if somebody came and told my kids off, then I'd yeah, I'd be quite annoyed really and find out what was going on. They'd have had to have done something pretty drastic. I mean,
you admit to being a little bit of a wimp about telling somebody else's children off,
yeah,
don't
well,
you?
the thing is, I once went on a holiday, and on the first day of a holiday, these sort of pre-teens came into this sort of little soft play area that was the size of an average kid's bedroom, and they sort of lolled around on this slide and in the ball pool, and sort of with their long limbs took up all the area. So my kids were kind of squished in a corner a bit, and I thought, I'm not telling them off because I find something quite intimidating about other people's, like, 12-year-olds. Plus, it was the first day of a holiday, so I have to keep bumping into them at various coffee shops.
You'd have no compunction at all, but, I mean, aren't you running a bit of a risk? I mean, you don't know how people are going to react. They might thump you.
No, of course they might thump you. I mean, I think the point here is that you don't go around just telling people's children off willy-nilly, OK? Of course you don't do that, and there are ways of doing it. Also, I wouldn't tell someone else's children off in the same way that I would tell my own. But it is a more serious point that we all do have a responsibility as a society to teach children that there are certain ways it's OK to behave and certain ways that it's not. In the case of the ball pool with the long limbs, you know, you would have been well within your right. And in fact, I think you should, as a person in society, go to these people and say to them, in a nice kind of way, hey, guys, come on, look, no one else can play here.
Yeah, but it's always that risk. They'll then go off and tell their mum, and their mum will come round and she'll be bigger than me. It's like the Jurassic Park thing where there's a cute little dinosaur and then it's like, here comes the mother, doink, dong. You know, and I'm like, oh, hi.
But if we don't do that, right, if we don't do that, what is happening is that children just know they can get away with murder. They can feed Doritos to apes. If I ever see anyone feeding Doritos to apes, I will tell them off immediately. I know. I mean, it's...
Do you know,
but we do
have
have
not
to.
Not just you two going, it's got everybody going at home as well. And we've had lots of messages and questions in. John's texted in and says, I told an 8-year-old... John's able to know. He told a boy off who was riding his scooter around in the wine department. That could have been you, couldn't it, where you work. His mother had a go at me and pointed out the dangers. Sarah, surely he says it's acceptable in dangerous situations.
I think if there's small children, I'll easily pick on other people's small kids. If they break the cardinal rule of life, which is throwing sand in the sand pit, I'm straight in there.
OK, so you would?
They're not allowed to do that. Yeah, of course.
Okay,
if my children are in any danger and they're getting duffed up, then of course I'd be in there. But if one of them gets nudged past a bit, you know, going down the slide in a soft play centre. I mean, last week I sort of said to this 8-year-old, like, oh, nice manners, because he pushed in front of us when you're in one of those soft play centres, which are quite claustrophobic anyway. And then it was like a horror movie. Every corner I went round, he was sat there like that. He was only 8, and I was like, oh, God.
But we can't be freaked out by young children. This is the thing. If we let young children terrify us, that we can't say no. They know, and this does actually lead to kids going into schools. They know the teachers aren't going to discipline them. They know no one's going to. They just
It's not being terrified of them, though. It's whether it's our business to discipline someone else.
You know, when you're little, though,
business,
everybody told you off. Well, everyone on my street told me off because they all knew my mum. So you could just randomly get told off by anybody in your street if you're misbehaving. So you kind of generally behaved better anyway. But I think sort of...
I mean, there is, you know, we talked about in the earlier discussion, you know, there are grades of this. We don't want people... Exactly. You don't need people going around saying, oh, I think you pushed in a little bit, young man. You know, it's not that kind of thing. But it is a general sense that if there's a child doing something which is completely antisocial, you should absolutely be able to go and then say, excuse me, please don't do that.
I'm going to pause you for a moment because we've had lots of texts and emails. I want to include a couple of those. Rebecca has texted in to say a parent at my school constantly reprimands other children, mine included, right under her noses, and it leaves her seething.
I can understand that, can you?
Oh, I can. And there's always that busybody mum, isn't there, who comes up and says, oh, something's wrong. You know, it's not that. It's to do with community parenting and teaching children how to behave in society. If a kid comes around...
is a passive-aggressive as well, where if your child's being a bit noisy or something in public, and that kind of happened the other week, where I sort of went over and said to the lady, you know, I'll quite happily confront the other parents, but maybe not the child.
Alexandra Worth makes a good point. I don't think you should discipline someone else's child unless you know the child and family situation well. What if the child's behaving badly because of problems at home and is a cry for help?
Yeah, OK, I think the word discipline also is maybe throwing people a little bit. It sounds as if you're going in there and saying, well, you know, you sit there, you've been bad. It's not... I don't see it in that sense at all. I used the example earlier, and I'll use it again, of 2 kids in a swimming pool smashing each other over the head with the foam balls, which I think looked like great fun for them, but they were destroying that equipment for other people. So it's that sense of actually that's out of order, you can't do that, and you will be picked up on that by people in the...
Do you do it when you can't see any other parents about them?
Yeah, definitely.
I'm going to pause you there. Someone's going to discipline us right now. We don't stop you. Sorry. Thanks very much, Dee, for your contribution. Thanks also to you at home who've texted in and sent us messages as well. OK, after 8, Wild at Heart star Dawn Steele joins us.